we have a saying, don't fall in love with a mirror. We've got to continuously reinvent ourselves to understand what's the best version of us. And once we're doing that, we've had virtually no issues.
Our guest today is Glen Raven's VP of Operation, Randy Blackston. As VP of Operations, Randy is responsible for global manufacturing of the Sunbrella branded products. He's also responsible for the operations of 5 manufacturing plants with 1,500 associates. His biggest achievement includes the design, engineered staffing plan with job specs, plant layout, and machinery specification for the 1 million square foot operations facility in Anderson, South Carolina. Randy led the corporate-wide sustainability initiative, achieving landfill-free status in all operations in North America, France, and China. Randy has an expansive amount of skills and experiences with Glen Raven, being at the company for over 29 years. Randy's also a member of the COO Alliance. So Randy, welcome to the Second in Command podcast.
Cameron, I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you again too. When you and I first chatted, it was about the Sunbrella product line and brand, and I was just like, wow, like that like everybody knows that thing. Is that your marquee product line?
Yeah, that's our flagship product. The Sunbrella product was invented in 1961. And Glen Raven, once that product was invented, we started, manufacturing it domestically, but now we're manufacturing it around the world. We've got manufacturing in Europe and in Asia, as well as domestically here in North America.
You guys are a pretty successful company. I mean, you mentioned in the notes earlier when you started. So you guys started 1880.
That's right, 1880.
So like 140-year-old company. Still privately held organization, and you're not a small company. Can you give us some idea, without giving away exact details, but some rough ideas how big you really are?
In terms of Glen Raven Global, we have around 3,000 lives around the world, is how we like to look at that. We have 3 different divisions, and we do everything from manufacture the Sunbrella branded products. We also have a division that manufactures fire-resistant products under the GlenGuard brand. We also have a distribution arm of the company. We also have other brands that go into different decorative upholstery businesses and shade businesses as well.
Are there other brands that are as well known in the marketplace as Sunbrella that I just don't know of?
Yeah, there are other brands. For example, in Europe, our leading brand for the shade product is the Dixon brand. So Dixon is a company that we acquired many years ago that manufactures a shade product. So the Dixon brand, we have a brand that you probably see a good bit. Jet skis, I know you do snowmobiling. You probably see the Surelass brand for those products up there. And so, yeah, there's several different brands that we service.
And what percentage of your growth, or not percentage, but how much of your growth has been from acquisitions and how much of it is organic? Do you do a lot of acquisitions as a company?
We've done a few acquisitions, but primarily a lot of what we've done is organic growth. The facility that you described in the opener, Humble Roots, there's about 400 people in the early 90s that were manufacturing the Sunbrella branded product. And so we just launched a Greenfield initiative to go out and to learn from all the different manufacturing arenas here domestically and internationally, trying to understand not just how to build a world-class fabric plant or a world-class yarn plant, but taking it down to a notch. Let's understand world-class manufacturing. And then we went on a voice of the customer tour, if you will, just looking at how our products were used by our customers. And so with the world-class manufacturing concept and then the voice of the customer concept, we sat down at a CAD machine and designed this facility. So from 400 to, there's just over 1,500 domestically. And then, the around the world piece that I described earlier, that those earlier designs and concepts have been replicated and expanded upon around the world. So we have had some acquisition. As I mentioned, the European product, the Dixon product, it was through acquisition, but most of it is through organic growth.
And I just had to do the math because I was trying to figure out what 1 million square feet looked like in my head, and I'll tell you what I came up with. But I was like, is it bigger than a grocery store? And I'm like, yeah, it has to be. Is it bigger than a Walmart? Yeah, it's got to be. So then I looked up how many square feet a football field is. A football field is 48,000 square feet. So the manufacturing facility that you built and launched is bigger than 20 football fields lined up beside each other. Like, that's ridiculous. I was thinking in my head first, a football field, that's really freaking big. And then like 10, but 20 football fields is just, how do you even go about designing something like that? And how many years was that in the making?
So we designed for 2 solid years, and then we broke ground in 1994 and finished the expansion in July 97. And we broke it up into 4 unique phases. We did the yarn prep in the early stages of that facility, then went to phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And when everything was complete, it was all under one roof and about 3 years of tough construction. We just kept growing and growing and growing. So just bit by bit, and it wasn't any one individual's job. I had a key role in the design of that and the material layout and material handling of it. But in terms of what we accomplished, it was a team effort. We had a lot of camaraderie, worked together, and, here it is 30 years later, we're still, doing the same thing and seeing the company grow at this level has been outstanding.
How many people were in the company roughly when you joined?
So Glen Raven, in terms of size, it's still a pretty big company, around 2,000 people, but we have sold businesses and we've exited markets. Quite frankly, to give you a quick story, our former CEO, his father invented pantyhose, had a small knitting plant and invented the pantyhose product. And for many years, we were the leading provider of pantyhose. But when the rest of the world viewed it as a commodity product, there was very little value in the brand, we sold that product. There are a lot of companies that sell commodity products. And those commodity products, quite frankly, are the fabrics that we wear, but we chase the brand that's on those fabrics. So whether it be a Polo Ralph Lauren or a Levi, those are the brands that have the premium. So the great idea that the Gant family had back in 1961 was to label the Sunbrella branded fabric. This fabric is an ingredient brand that allows you to live a worry-free lifestyle. This product does not fade. It does, it resists wear, it resists water. It's the most cleanable product that I've encountered. And you could put this stuff in bleach and a certain detergent mix, and it doesn't fade. When you've got a product that's that serviceable, it just helps you live a worry-free lifestyle. And the Gant family branded that product back in 1961. And it has served us incredibly well as we've grown this business to 3,000 folks around the world.
You have said you have global operations. Yes. How much of your manufacturing is still done in the U.S.?
Somewhere around 50% at least.
That's amazing. And so the stuff that's being done out of Asia or Europe, is that mostly just being done to serve those markets then more, or is it?
Exactly, just to serve those markets. When we went to Asia, we didn't go out there to chase inexpensive labor. We went out and built a brand new facility according to, Western engineered standards, and built a world-class manufacturing facility. We have what we call the Sunbrella brand promise. That's to have industry-leading performance metrics in everything that you measure, to make sure that product can withstand the test of time and give you that worry-free lifestyle.
Is it still a family-owned company, or is it privately held?
No, it's a family-owned company.
How involved are the family in the business? Are they passive? Are they actively involved? Are they more board? Are they operational?
The former CEO is the chairman of our board. He's still working with us. We've got probably 4 or 5 family members in the business doing roles everywhere from the commercial sales role to sustainability. We've got folks throughout the company that are family members that chose to work for the business that they own.
And how does the dynamic of being a family-owned company that's 140 years old, I'm just curious, what are some of the struggles and the lessons on how to make it work really well?
Our family board, if you will, guides the business, but we also have an operating board that's the best minds from around the world looking at, business, finance, marketing, different aspects of modern business. And that group will challenge us to make sure we're meeting our potential. And that's it. We have a saying, don't fall in love with a mirror. We've got to continuously reinvent ourselves to understand what's the best version of us. And once we're doing that, we've had virtually no issues.
In terms of the products that you sold off or the product lines that you sold off or stopped, how does the company make those decisions? I don't think people do that enough.
Quite frankly, it's a pricing game. If you can't afford to live in that commodity world, there was a time when backpacks were popular in the mid 80s. Probably did, hundreds of thousands. You were talking about a football field. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of yards of that product every week.
Wow.
And over time, as that product, became viewed as a commodity, if this price cannot be achieved in the market, you've got to innovate. And innovation is key to that product line. In any product line, if you can't innovate and declare that this is why this product commands this price, then you've got to innovate and do something in a different direction. Just push the boundaries of what's possible. And as you find yourself in that commodity world, and if you can't engineer cost out to meet the price, you've got to innovate. That's part of the game.
What do you focus on day to day in your role?
In terms of my role as Vice President of Operations, reporting directly to me, I have a Director of Engineering that focuses on global best practices, operational strategies. Also have an individual that's Director of Sunbrella Care. And in terms of safety, staffing, and compliance, I have a Director of HR that's focused on all of those risk mitigation points. And then each facility has a Director of Operations. So in terms of my role, I'm working within that director group, whether it's engineering, staffing, or within each facility, I'm engaging those folks on the metrics that we monitor this business by.
What are you seeing in terms of globally, the differences in doing business? You've got operations in multiple countries. Are the countries similar, or are there some vast differences in some areas at all?
The first one that I can think of, they're cultural differences. The cultural differences from here to Europe, from the U.S. to Asia. Quite frankly, the thing that pulls us all together is that familial tie of being a family-owned and operated business. We're all great friends and we engage each other. And for the most part, I do not speak their language, but I try.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy entertaining them at my common places, the places that I go every day. I try to show them this is where I eat lunch when we discuss this topic. Our goal is to make the best shade fabric, the best performance fabric, the best decorative furniture fabric, and have you figured out a way to make it better?
Do you take any of the ideas from the way that they're actually running their business and bring it into the North American operations at all?
Oh, exactly. I'm in the middle of a project right now. We launched right in the middle of COVID, a $70 million project last year, and it was based on myself, the Director of Engineering, the European director and his engineer. We were all at a common technology show in Europe, and there was a piece of technology there that caught their eye. And we did it differently here in the States. $70 million later, we've got a common way of doing it, right? It doesn't have to originate in the U.S. for it to be a best practice. A best practice is a best practice. And that's much like the COO Alliance. The greatest opportunity I've had is coming to a group of other like-minded COOs and, what have you faced this week? What are your challenges this week? And if somebody else has figured out how to work around that or how to engineer around that, we'll grab it and it's all over Glen Raven's world. It doesn't have to be invented here.
Being a company that had been in business for 140 years when COVID hits, I'm pretty sure that you weren't a distributed workforce. I'm pretty sure you weren't a, hey, let's all work from home company. Like, how did you navigate that?
2020 is one of the most difficult years of my life. I vividly remember our general manager from Asia was actually traveling for Chinese New Year, and we were talking about this virus that was discovered in December of 2019. And so we were talking about the lockdown that's occurred, and he said, Randy, I'm not in China now. I don't know how I'm going to get home. The world's on complete lockdown. And I remember going outside that night and looking up in the sky, and the number of airplanes just, typically you go out, there'd be 3 or 4 anytime you'd look up, because I'm right between the Atlanta airport and the Charlotte airport. So we've got air travel constantly. They're both very busy airports, but the amount of air travel is just slowing down. And as I mentioned earlier, with our director of human resources, safety is our number one objective. How do we keep 3,000 people around the world safe? And so we immediately mobilize a COVID action team looking at what have you learned in Asia about how the disease spreads, how it travels, how you contact it, how you manage it. 80 to 90% of our associates of that 3,000 number, I mean, they're making product. They're in facilities. And how do we keep them safe? The beauty part, to prevent color to color migration, we have a very intensive air conditioning system that turns the air over many times per hour. I mean, they're 30 to 60 times per hour. So we have this system that keeps the airflow, and it's almost like breathing outside air. But early to adopt masks, early to adopt testing. I mean, we found a company that was helicoptering in test kits every Tuesday to do 100% testing of 1,500 people, and Europe had their team tested, Asia had their team tested. We're about offering free vaccinations to our team members. We're atomizers. I think in terms of COVID prep systems, we probably spent $300,000 to $500,000 just on different systems, different break room setups, just so that our folks could continue to manufacture the product to be safe. And we've been very fortunate. We haven't lost a person around the world through these preventative measures.
What percentage of your team were able to work from home then? Like, did the office staff work from home?
So accounting, commercial, finance, the typical roles did remote work, but I think I spent a total of 10 days not in the office in all of 2020 personally.
Will the company start to hire more people remote now? Will you make that change, or will you go back to the way that we always did it before?
We do allow remote work, but we strongly encourage, obviously, if you're in a zone that's ultra high risk, if you can work from home, work from home. But quite frankly, one of the biggest challenges for us is the launch in our brand's usage through COVID. We're bleach cleanable, and how do you make sure you clean the viruses away? I mean, we've seen a huge surge in the amount of our Sunbrella products that have been used through COVID. And it's not just for the bleach cleanable protective side of it. It's for the lifestyle that we can sell. If you follow boating, is boating up right now? Yes. Are garden patio sales up around the world? I mean, there've been 3 or 4 NBC, CBS, ABC television shows about how the outside lifestyle is booming in this country. And so because of that, because folks are not going inside to sit down in a restaurant, through the lockdowns, everyone has learned how to reconnect with their family and go outside. The number of patio umbrellas, swimming pools, everything is going towards that outdoor lifestyle. And because of that, just for 2021, we've launched another multi-year expansion plan for about $250 million to service that brand. And it's just not all domestic either. So this is a global launch with new factories in Europe, new factories in the U.S., and expansions in our facility in Asia, just so that we can be the solutions provider when you want to go outside or sit in your living room and not worry about your favorite chair fading, right?
I love your obsession with that. You're always going back to the product and how great it is and the usability, and like it just feels like there's such a belief in it and a core around it that it just permeates every discussion. I love it. Is Glen Raven unionized or non-union?
We do not have unions in our domestic facilities, and obviously internationally there are certain representation groups, but we have a great working relationship with all of our associates around the world.
I'm glad, frankly. I mean, I think unions may have had their place back in the 50s and 60s, but when you're a great company and you take care of your employees, there's no reason to have a union. Like, it actually just gets in the way. Is that why you think you're not unionized? Is it just you're just a really great place and care about people? And
again, that familial culture has you can see that through all levels of our organization, and quite frankly, we're very proud of the culture that we have. Every leader within the company, including myself, has gone through a psychometric evaluation. And quite frankly, anybody that applies, we carry them through a battery of tests, and it tells us if they're a good fit to our values or not. And so if the test come back, it's not a good fit, there's not a second interview. And so we just make sure we, appreciate what's going on. We listen, and, when we sit down to a pile of resumes that match our culture, that have, if the individuals have that skill set that we're looking for, at that point in the game, we're just looking for passionate people, right? If you can find somebody that's passionate about what they do and why they did that, why they majored in this, why did you major in industrial engineering, or why did you major in electrical engineering, or why did you major in marketing? You find somebody that can talk passionately about why they took the steps that they took in life, or why they engaged this certain outdoor sport. You find folks that have a spark of passion. That makes the job easier from that point forward.
It sure does. It makes a massive difference from that point forward. Got a question about kind of some of the legacy systems. When a company's been around for so long, it must be easy to get trapped into, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's the Glen Raven way. Well, I mean, the Glen Raven way could be 140 years old, for God's sakes. Like, how do you change and socialize change inside of a company that has been around for so long, that may have some systems that need to be changed?
We have to make sure our team members are involved in organizations that speak about change like this. I mean, quite frankly, the reason that I signed up for the COO Alliance is to understand new systems. And I've been, taking notes through all of the sessions, learning about how folks track customer care claims, how folks track after sales service. And back to that original point that I made, don't fall in love with the mirror. Just because you do it that way doesn't mean that's the way we're going to do it from now on. It's just part of our DNA not to be in love with how it's being done today, to continue to innovate. We do that with the products that we sell. We do that with the systems that we use. Or we do that with the technology that makes the product. The facility that we launched in 1994, I'm going to reach out and say probably only 40% of the technology that was installed at that period of time is still here. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of initial investments that have been retired and set aside for new technology that does it better, more efficient, and a higher quality product, or it provides some feature that our customers are looking to see with a new product that we don't make. And so I guess I can say it's just part of our DNA.
All right, let's go back to the 21, 22-year-old Randy. You're kind of starting out in your business career. What advice would you have wanted back then that to be true today, but you wish you'd known when you were younger?
I would focus less on what I can accomplish. Early on, I was one of those workaholic. So, I had a lot of great, I just got a lot of pride in completing projects. Early on, we've got this new concept, design a plant. Well, here it is. Here's the plant that I designed. And it's not a I world out there. I had great relationships with those that were in the trenches with me during those projects. I guess I would say I suffered somewhat with relationships across the enterprise. I wish that I had focused more on relationships with the expanded team. And through the COO Alliance and other, professional development opportunities, I focused more on active listening regardless of who I'm with. Today I spend a considerable more time working with the extended leadership team just from a position of support, sharing experiences, checking for understanding to the strategy and engaging folks. So,
great.
Yeah, and quite frankly, every day I've got to understand who I was. It's the person that's going to take me where I want to go, right?
It's true.
I've got to innovate myself,
Yep. If we're green, we're growing. When we're ripe, we're rotting.
That's right.
Randy Blackston, thank you so much for sharing. Randy Blackston is the Vice President Operations at Glen Raven. Thanks very much for being on the Second in Command podcast.
Thanks, Cameron.
It does take more energy, it does take more discipline, but it makes such a huge impact. That investment of time is very, very important. What I've learned through this whole remote and now being permanently in a remote position, you make the time, and don't just rely on Zoom, but you gotta make the time.